Thank you for installing the Smokeless range. This video will walk you through the general setup to get you started using the system. The Smokeless range installer will have placed two new icons on your desktop. The first one is the Smokeless range itself. This icon is used to launch and run the Smokeless range software. The second icon is the Smokeless range support icon. Double-clicking this icon will take you to the Smokeless range support page. Let's begin by plugging our USB 2.0 laser tracking camera into an open USB 2.0 or 3.0 port on our laptop or desktop computer. Now it's time to go over the system setup. A typical setup is using a projector, creating an image from 8 foot to 12 foot wide. The screen should be a matte white finish with no more than a 1.0 gain. You can also use a flat white wall that's not glossy. The camera will need to be placed at a distance to be able to see the entire projected image. The camera has a 1.6 to 1 throw ratio, so to calculate how far back your camera will need to be, you multiply the width of your screen by 1.6. So in the case of an 8 foot wide screen, the camera would need to be approximately 13 feet back to see the entire image. Depending on the throw ratio of your projector, that means the camera could be right even with the projector, it could be in front of the projector, or it could be located behind the projector. If you need to use a USB extender, please visit smokelessdownload.com, then click on the support database link to find our article that lists out known good USB extenders. The software runs at a minimum desktop resolution of 1280 by 720, but it can also be run at 1920 by 1080. So now we'll cover how to set your desktop resolution and your display settings if needed. First, right-click on your desktop and choose Display Settings. Then scroll down and click on the drop-down box in Multiple Displays. You want to run it either as duplicate these displays to show on both the laptop screen and the projector screen at the same time, or show only on two if you'd like to show just on the projector. This can also be helpful to show only on the projector if the targets jitter while moving on the screen while running the Smokeless range. Once you've changed your selection, click on Keep Changes. Now we will set our desktop resolution either to the minimum of 1280 by 720 or 1920 by 1080 if our projector and computer are capable of this. Now click Keep Changes and then click on the red X to close the Display Settings dialog. The first time you run the software, it will ask you to activate it using the provided license keys. At this time, go ahead and double-click the Smokeless range icon located on your desktop. Now we'll click Activate Smokeless Range. We're going to choose Activate Smokeless Range Online. Now go ahead and enter your ID and your password that were provided to you when you bought the Smokeless range. Then click Continue. You should see that the activation was completed successfully. Now click Continue. Next you'll see the registration screen. Registration is an important step to ensure that if you ever lose your license key, we're able to look it up with your name or email address. All fields with an asterisk next to it are required. When you're done, just click Continue to complete the registration. The first screen you are shown is our safety check. Please make sure that you follow safe dry fire practices when using the Smokeless range. Here's something to point out real quick is we have automatic updates that push out. And if there is one when you run the Smokeless range, it will show this pop-up. The same is true for all our add-ons. You have the option of running by clicking the OK button. That will run the update and update to the latest version. Or you can click Cancel, and this will not run the update, which is what I'm going to do right now for this demonstration. I would highly recommend, if you're about to use this system for any kind of important purpose, not running an update. So only run the updates when you have plenty of time to contact support in case there's something that happens. It's rare, but it does happen. So again, do not run an update prior to doing something important like teaching a class or giving a demonstration. Wait until afterwards when you have time to contact support during our normal hours in case you have any issues. When you're ready, just click anywhere on this page to continue on to the menu. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is calibrate our camera. Now we're here in the Smokeless range menu. Up in the upper right hand corner we're going to see the red pulsing lens icon, and we're going to click on that. This brings us to the camera settings screen. In here we have our button to go to the camera calibration. We can jump straight to test tracking, but we'll get to those buttons in just a minute. The first thing we need to do is set our camera to the proper camera type that we're using. There are three options. The standard camera, that's the standard throw camera that comes with the Smokeless range. That's the 1.6:1 field of view camera, and that has the built-in internal red filter. So there's no filter choices for the standard camera. If you have the standard throw camera, you're just going to choose standard throw camera. If you have the optional short throw camera, then it comes standard with the red filter, but there is an optional IR filter if needed. So both those options are here. So if you have the standard red filter to use with your short throw camera, you would select here, and if you had the optional IR filter, you would click here. But we have the standard camera, so we're going to keep the standard camera selected. This brings us down to tracking mode. This is either dry fire, like a sure strike that goes in your pistol and just dry fires a laser every time you pull the trigger, or something like the ATLAP orange training pistol. The recoil tracking mode is for anything with an actuating slide or bolt. So using the recoil airsoft trainers would use the recoil tracking mode. Then we have the reverse recoil tracking mode. This option is only used for first generation ATP pistols, which would have been sold several years ago. So unless you know for sure that you have one of those generation ATP pistols, do not check this box. This is just there for those previous customers. And then we have our use previous driver. Since we've released a new driver with this update, we've also included a way to revert back to the old driver in case there's any issues. So for any reason you need to revert back to the old driver, just check this checkbox and then jump into calibration. But since we're going to use the new driver, we're going to leave this unchecked, and we're going to click on Calibrate Camera to get started on the camera calibration. So this is going to launch our camera calibration, and the first screen is our live view from the camera screen. So here we're getting a live view from the camera. You can see as I move the camera around, you can see the image moving. So the idea here is to align the camera so that it can see the entire projected image with a little bit of black border all the way around, so that it's seeing the whole image and none of it's being cut off like this. We want to make sure the whole thing can be as centered as we can get it. If you need to, you can click the darker or brighter buttons, and usually the standard setting or one click up on the brighter for normal setups should be about what you need. In this particular setup, I'm going to go with this setting because that gets rid of the reflected image on this metal sconce to the left of the screen here. So I'm going to go back to darker, and that leads me to my next subject, which is about room lighting. So room lighting is important. The first thing to note is that you should have no sunlight in the room. Sunlight is a very strong source of light and is right in the same wavelength that we use for the lasers, so it can flood the image and it can either give you a hard time calibrating or a hard time tracking. So zero sunlight in the room. Next thing is nothing other than the projected image in the view of the camera. So if you have overhead lights, can lights in the ceiling, or lamps over by the screen or behind the screen, TV or laptop screen, anything that can be seen in the image other than the projected image is going to cause you a hard time for calibration and tracking. And the last thing is going to be the type of light and how harsh it is on the screen. So in your room, you can have normal lighting, but you don't want any light sources that shine harshly on the screen, causing a blown out image. So now I'm going to go through a few examples so you can see what that is. So our first one is going to be windows in the room. So I'm going to go open up the windows in this room and let the sunlight in and show you what that's going to look like in the image. Okay, now I've got the windows open in this room, and you can really see how it's washing the image out, and there's no way this is probably going to calibrate and certainly not track. So you want to make sure you don't have any sunlight coming in your room. You're going to need to get some blackout curtains or some way to cover up the windows to ensure that you don't have any sunlight in here washing the screen out. Now I'm going to go back and shut the windows, and you'll see how much of a difference there is. Okay, now I've got my windows closed, so I've got a normal image again. Now we're going to talk about having shiny objects or other light sources in the screen. or in the camera's view. So I'm going to go ahead, I've got a TV off to the left here. I'm going to go ahead and turn that on. Okay, now I've got my TV on, which is to the left of the screen, and you can see here that pulsing is really an effect of the frame rate of the TV versus the frame rate of the camera. So a light source like this would definitely cause me issues while trying to calibrate. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that TV off. Another issue could be if I had overhead lights on or lights in the room. I have two different light sources in this room. One is a central light, that's an incandescent traditional type light bulb, and the others are recessed can lights with LED bulbs in them. So I'll go ahead and flip on the LED bulbs and point out a few things about that. So now I've got the overhead LED bulbs on, and you can see over here in this left corner I'm getting a reflection off of this metal sconce on the wall. That could cause me issues. I'm also getting some light reflecting just above the screen, because one of the can lights is above the screen and just behind it. If the screen was back another foot, then that light would be shining directly on the screen. So again, that's something that you don't want to happen. So I'm going to go ahead and shut those lights off and then turn my center light on, which is a traditional incandescent bulb, and you'll see how much that affects this image. It's only about 4 feet from the screen, so it's going to shine right on it and give us some undesirable flooding of the image. Okay, now I've got my central light on in the room, which is not too far from the front of the screen, and it's an incandescent type bulb, and those put out a lot more of the higher end of the spectrum close to the infrared, which is where our lasers are, so the camera's pretty sensitive to that, and that will wash out the image, both visually and for the camera. So again, I don't want a harsh light on that's close to the screen or shining directly on the screen like this. So I'm going to go ahead and turn that light back off, and we'll get on to regular calibration. Now I've got my normal light back, and the way I have my room lit is I have normal room lights on back where I'm sitting and where I'm going to be shooting from, and then I have the lights off up by the screen. If you don't have the ability to split your lighting like that, you might want to get like a portable lamp or some other light source that you can turn on in the back of the room where you're going to be shooting from, so that you can see your sights and you're not having to train in the dark. Okay, so we're going to proceed with calibration now, and we're going to do that by clicking on the calibrate button in the lower left corner. This is going to flash a series of dots on the screen, and that is so the camera can calibrate itself to the projected image. Now it's setting the threshold for tracking. Now if during the dots flashing on the screen, any of them started to flash continuously, and then you got a failure error, that'd be most likely due to some sort of lighting issue. So I'd go back and look at the live view and make sure there's not some other light source in the camera's view, or there's not any harsh light shining on the screen, or any sunlight coming in the room washing your image out, because that's what's going to cause that kind of issue. You may also need to adjust your brightness. This is the test tracking screen. Now, here I have a few settings that we need to do. The first thing is if I needed to check the points, I can click on the points button, and this shows me how it's found all the different dots. And they're found in the same order they're flashed on the screen, from top left down to bottom right. If for any reason any of these dots were not in the correct place, which in the corners, these wedges, it's going to be on the tip of the wedge. On the edges, it's going to be the center of the flat side of the half circle, and in the middle, it'll be in the center of the dot. I would just left mouse click to select that point, and it'll tell you which point in its order it is, so you know where it goes if it's real far off from where it should be. Again, usually that would only happen if you had bad lighting or some other kind of light source in the image that was causing problems. So I can either left mouse click and drag this back to where it needs to go. If I need to fine tune it, I can also use the arrow keys on my keyboard. So now I'm just going to click close, and now I can shoot anywhere on this test tracking screen, and I should get a red marker that's indicating where it tracked the laser. I can really shoot anywhere. These crosshairs are there just as reference. I can use them as something to aim at if I'd like to. Or I can shoot anywhere on the screen. And this is a good screen for calibrating the laser to my sight picture if I need to. Once I'm done and I'm ready, I just click save, and that's going to bring me right back out to the Smokeless range menu screen. Alright, now a few more points to show real quick on this getting started video. One is that in this latest version of the Smokeless range, we now have a few options for the laser zero, so you can actually zero the firearm through the software, and this is really for if your laser cannot be adjusted or if it can't be adjusted enough to bring the laser to the aim point of the sights on your firearm. So a good example of that would be the M16. Because of the offset of the sight post to the barrel, if you're too close to the screen, you can't get the laser high enough to match the sight picture, so you could do this zero firearm here and bring that right to your sight picture. So I'm going to simulate that where the laser is going to hit slightly below the actual aim point, but I'm going to be aiming at the center of this target. So I'm going to do 3 well-placed shots here. Oh, I messed up there, so I'm going to shoot reset. I'm going to try that again. Okay, now I'm going to shoot to confirm. And you can see the arrows where the laser actually hit, and then the little dot is where my aim point is. So it's right on my aim point. So from here, I would click Save, or I could click Reset if I needed to do it again, and then I would click Back. Another option we have now is the ability to add a ballistics profile. So I can click on Edit Ammunition, and here I can assign my shooters, Shooter 1 and Shooter 2. Our drills have split screen modes. So you can the left side would be Shooter 1, right side would be Shooter 2. So I can pick a different ballistics profile for each shooter lane. Shooter 1 is for the whole screen. So if I'm running single shooter, the whole screen mode, then I'm going to set that for Shooter 1. So I'm going to go ahead and leave it at 9mm. And then if I have a second shooter that I want to set it for, I can do that as well. So I'm going to leave that as 9mm as well. Click Save, Exit. And again, every time I launch the menu, if there's an update, this updater will come up. And that brings me to my settings screen. So I'm again going to cancel and not run this update. And in my settings, I can go in here if I didn't want those to pop up all the time, if I was at a trade show and I wasn't ready to update and didn't want that to show up all the time, or if I was given a class, you can come in here and click Disable Updates, and that's going to disable showing the automatic updates. But if you do that, you're just going to have to know that you need to come in periodically and click on Check for Updates to see if there's anything new. You can also turn the shot markers off and on in the drills. You can turn off and on showing the leaderboard after you run through a drill. You can also disable the administrator buttons in the upper right hand corner by clicking Disable Buttons. But I'm going to leave all of this at its default, except for the disable updates. I'm going to leave that on just for the remainder of this demonstration. So now I have edit screen parameters. This is new, and this allows me to tell the software how big my projected image is and how far away my firing line is. It defaults to an 8-foot wide screen, so I've already measured mine, and I know it's 86 inches, so I'm going to change this to inches. I'm going to enter in 86. My shooter distance is actually 15 feet from the screen, so I'm going to leave that alone, and I'm going to click Apply. You can see that the target scaled slightly. So this target distance is purely for demonstration, so you can set this and just see what the result would be by setting a distance and clicking Apply. And if you set it to the same distance as my firing line, it'll be real world size. So the target's displaying actual size now. Once I'm done, I'm going to click Save. And again, the only two settings on the screen that affect anything is the screen width and the shooter distance. Target distance is just purely for a visual test. So I've clicked Save and I click Exit. Now my screen parameters are set up. And run through the last few things here. Edit icon allows me to turn off and on different drill icons in the menu. Manage license. This is pretty important if you want to move the license to a new PC. You'd come in here and click on Deactivate and then Yes for each one for the Smokeless range and any add-ons that you see in here. And that's going to deauthorize them from this computer, allowing them to be activated on the new computer. Manage high scores allows me to reset all the high scores in the leaderboard, and then check for updates is just for manual checking of updates. So I'm going to click back to go back to my menu. And next thing I'll show you here are these yellow back and forth arrows. If you don't have any add-ons installed, you will not see these arrows. If you do have any add-ons installed, you will see these arrows, and these are used to navigate the add-on pages. So as I click through here, I can also shoot these, and you also will see down here this navigation grid, and it'll tell you where you are in the pages. And if I wanted to jump straight to a page with a mouse, I could do so as well. And the last thing is, if I want to exit the smokeless range, then I just click on this red power button, and then I would click yes. If for any reason I did this on accident, I could click no, it'd go right back to the menu, but I'm going to go ahead and click on yes to exit out. An important note is when you exit the menu, that also exits the tracking, so the tracking will turn off. So if you exit out of the menu for any reason, and then you're going to go back into it, then you need to go back into the camera calibration, and if nothing's changed, your lighting hasn't changed, your camera position hasn't changed, anything, you can just click on driver, and that will jump you right back into your tracking from your previous calibration, and away you go. So that's it for this quick start video. We hope you enjoy training on the smokeless range. If you need help, contact us at srsupport@laser-ammo.com or visit www.smokelessdownload.com for more information.